Space doesn't just change your job, it changes who you are. Yes, sir, just as you heard. Not just their jobs, not just their titles, but something deeper, something that doesn't go back to the way it was. Astronauts are trained to endure. They learn how to survive zero gravity, radiation, isolation. They prepare their bodies like athletes, their minds like pilots, their spirits like explorers. But there's one thing training can't prepare them for: what happens when they return. Because no one comes back from space the same. Their bodies don't feel right. Their balance is gone. Their muscles forget what gravity is. Their hearts struggle to pump blood. Their eyes don't see like they used to. But it's not just physical. Something happens in the brain. Time stretches. Sleep fractures. Memories feel distant. Emotions sharpen or vanish. The rhythm of Earth becomes strange. Normal life doesn't feel so normal anymore. And for many astronauts, something else changes too. Something they can't explain. They look down at Earth from 400 kilometers up, and suddenly, it's not just a planet. It's home, fragile, tiny, connected. They feel awe. They feel grief. They feel a kind of spiritual clarity, as if stepping outside the world showed them who they truly are. And when they return, they carry that with them. Some grow quiet. Others become activists. Many never speak about what really changed. But ask them years later, and they'll tell you, space doesn't just take you away from Earth. It takes something out of you. In this video, we will explore the full story behind this. So, subscribe. This will be interesting. The science, the psychology, the soul. Why leaving the planet, even for a short time, leaves a permanent mark. Because when you leave gravity behind, you don't just float, you transform. Not slowly, not after days, but immediately. Space doesn't wait. It reshapes you, cell by cell. There's no up or down, no floor beneath your feet, no constant pull anchoring your skeleton. You float, and your body knows something is off. And so it starts to adapt in ways no human body evolved to handle. Muscles and bones. Gravity is a silent trainer. Every time you stand, walk, or sit, your body is fighting gravity. Your muscles strain. Your bones compress. Your skeleton strengthens. But take gravity away, and the body thinks it's no longer needed. Astronauts lose up to 20% of their muscle mass in less than a month. Calcium begins to leach out of their bones, weakening the skeleton. After 6 months in orbit, astronauts return with bones so fragile, they risk fractures doing basic tasks on Earth. It's not just weakness, it's atrophy. The body cannibalizing itself because gravity has vanished. To fight back, astronauts exercise 2 hours a day, every day, with treadmills strapped to their bodies and resistance devices mimicking weights. But even this intense routine only slows the decay. Fluids and faces. Without gravity, fluids don't know where to go. Blood and other fluids drift upward, flooding the head and face. Astronauts develop moon face, puffy cheeks, thin legs, pressure in the skull. They feel constantly congested. Voices change. Taste dulls. The body is out of balance. And the eyes, they suffer most. Vision in crisis. Astronauts have returned with blurred vision, optic swelling, and permanently flattened eyeballs. NASA calls it SANS, Spaceflight-Associated Neuroocular Syndrome. We still don't fully understand it, but it's dangerous and potentially permanent. Astronauts now undergo eye scans before, during, and after missions to monitor damage. Some may never recover full vision. The hearts struggle. In orbit, the heart doesn't fight gravity. It shrinks, becomes more efficient, and more fragile. On return to Earth, astronauts can't stand up without fainting. Their blood pressure plummets. Their circulatory system must relearn how to be human on Earth. It's not just strength, it's about survival. Changes at the cellular level. Zoom in, and the story gets stranger. Cells behave differently in space. Immune systems weaken. White blood cells change shape. Wound healing slows down. Skin becomes thinner and more vulnerable to damage. Radiation in orbit mutates DNA. Gene expression shifts. Telomeres, the caps at the ends of chromosomes that protect against aging, stretch oddly. then shrink rapidly after landing. One study even found that astronauts' microbiomes, the bacteria that live in and on the body, change drastically during flight. Everything you are is affected. Brain rewiring. Scans reveal that the brain's structure literally shifts in space. The brain floats upward, compressing against the skull. Balance is disrupted. The inner ear malfunctions. Processing speeds change. Neural pathways reroute. Even after returning to Earth, astronauts report problems with coordination, depth perception, and motor control for weeks. Our bodies were born into gravity. They depend on it. Remove it, and you begin to unbecome human, at least in the way biology intended. You don't just adapt. You transform. You survive, but you're never quite the same. Because it's been trained since birth to expect gravity, to orient you, balance you, guide every step, every motion, every sense. Take that away, and your brain enters confusion mode. The balance breakdown. The inner ear is your internal gyroscope. It tells you which way is up, down, left, right. But in space, there's no up, no down, no frame of reference. Your vestibular system malfunctions. Your brain gets mixed signals. Eyes say one thing, ears say another. The result? Space motion sickness, a strange, disorienting nausea that affects over half of all astronauts. Some vomit for days. Others feel dizzy, off balance, unable to focus. Even turning your head too fast can trigger vertigo. Eventually, your brain rewires itself. It stops relying on gravity. It learns to function in a world where floating is normal. But when you return to Earth, it has to rewire again fast. Structural shifts. MRIs of astronauts before and after long-duration space flights show that their brains physically change shape. The brain floats higher in the skull. The grooves and folds compress. Fluid distribution shifts. One study showed persistent changes in white matter, the brain's communication highways, even months after returning. It's not just function, it's form, neural recalibration. In microgravity, basic movement requires new thinking. Turning a screwdriver is different when your body isn't anchored. Using tools, grabbing objects, even writing, your brain has to adjust every input. Neural pathways adapt to interpret motion and motor control in 3D space. Reflexes change. Coordination evolves. By the time your brain adapts, you're already a different person. Sensory isolation and overload. Space can be eerily quiet and overwhelmingly loud. Inside the spacecraft, white noise from machinery is constant. Outside, there's silence. No birds, no wind, no environmental cues. Your senses go into overdrive. Small sounds feel huge. Shadows feel unnatural. Your internal clock becomes untethered. Astronauts often report altered perception of time. Some feel days stretch endlessly. Others feel like time collapses, days blending together in a loop. Sleep becomes fragmented. Circadian rhythms drift. Your brain, without Earth cycles, starts to lose its sense of place and time. Attention, memory, and processing. Long-duration astronauts often report lapses in concentration, difficulty focusing, short-term memory issues. NASA monitors cognitive performance closely. Even minor changes in reaction time, decision-making, or attention could become critical in emergencies. And while most effects are temporary, some linger, because space doesn't just challenge the body, it challenges cognition, emotional and social brain. Add to this the psychological load, being confined in a small space, staring at the same few faces for months. No fresh air, no escape, no privacy. Your brain craves novelty, and when it doesn't get it, stress builds. Mood swings, frustration, irritability, emotional flatness. Some astronauts describe it as feeling numb. Others say they experience moments of pure euphoria. Space does something to the mind. It bends it, twists it, tests it, and when astronauts return home, their brains are not what they were. They've adapted, rewired, and somewhere changed. At first, this sounds like a relief. But it's not. The human circulatory system is built for Earth. It evolved under pressure, quite literally. When astronauts enter microgravity, fluid shifts upward. Blood volume in the chest and head increases. The body interprets this as an overload and begins to flush fluids out. Plasma volume drops, blood pressure lowers, and the heart, sensing less resistance, begins to weaken. Over time, the heart becomes smaller. It pumps less efficiently. Astronauts return with low blood pressure and dizziness. Some can't even stand up after landing without fainting. Back on Earth, gravity slams back into them, and their cardiovascular system has to relearn everything, fast. But the heart isn't alone. Other organs respond too. The kidneys adjust fluid regulation. The liver changes its metabolic pathways. Gastrointestinal function slows, sometimes causing nausea or digestion problems upon return. And the lymphatic system, essential for immune defense, struggles in space. It drains less effectively. That's part of why astronauts get puffy faces and weakened immune responses. Even the blood itself is affected. One recent study found signs of hemolysis, the breakdown of red blood cells, at a rate higher than on Earth. This may explain why astronauts often return with lower red blood cell counts, feeling fatigued or weak. The body's balance is delicate, and space doesn't just disrupt it. It rewrites the rules. 4 short trips, the body can recover. 4 long missions, to the moon, to Mars, the risks are far greater. Because the longer you're gone, the more your biology begins to forget where it came from. And returning to Earth becomes not just a landing, but a total re-entry into a forgotten environment. Space pushes those limits, not just because of danger, not because of zero gravity, but because of what it takes away. On Earth, we're surrounded by sensory input, day and night, weather, voices, smells, distance. In space, that stimulation disappears. You live inside a machine, see the same few people every day, hear the same hum of electronics, smell metal, plastic, and recycled air. There is no weather, no fresh breeze, no true silence. And over time, the mind begins to bend. Isolation and confinement. Astronauts spend weeks, months, even years away from Earth. Their homes shrink to a few square meters. Their crew is constant. Their routines repetitive. There's no escape. Nowhere to go when emotions run high. No private space to cry, or breathe, or be alone. This isolation builds pressure. Not explosive, but steady. A slow psychological grind. Even trained professionals feel it. Mood swings, depression, irritability. Some report emotional numbness, a kind of mental autopilot. One astronaut described it as being surrounded by people, but still feeling alone. Altered time and sleep. Without sunrise and sunset, circadian rhythms begin to drift. Astronauts orbit the Earth 16 times a day. That's 16 sunrises, 16 sunsets. Your body has no idea what time it is. Many report poor sleep, frequent waking, strange dreams, fatigue that builds quietly over weeks. Sleep deprivation doesn't just make you tired. It slows reaction time, impairs memory, weakens decision-making. In space, where one mistake can be fatal, this is serious. Cognitive strain. Being in space demands constant focus. Every task is monitored. Every movement planned. Even small errors can mean equipment failure, or worse. Astronauts operate under stress, under observation, with stakes that never go away. Over time, that stress becomes chronic. It wears down resilience. Reaction time can slow. Multitasking suffers. NASA tests astronauts constantly, looking for signs of cognitive fatigue. Because when you're millions of miles from help, your mind has to stay sharp. Emotional load. Then comes the psychological paradox of space. You're farther from Earth than ever before. And yet, you're watching it every day. Through a window, you see the entire planet. Blue, glowing, fragile. You see cities, storms, oceans, continents. But you can't touch any of it. That feeling of being close and impossibly far creates an ache. Some astronauts call it homesickness. Others call it something deeper, a kind of spiritual loneliness. You miss your family, but more than that, you miss the world. You miss trees, birdsong, crowds, randomness. Space is not random. It's controlled, predictable, and after a while, that control can start to feel like a cage. Coping strategies. NASA has spent years developing psychological support systems, scheduled video calls with loved ones, private time in crew quarters, access to music, movies, and messages from home. Even space gardens, tiny plant growth chambers to give astronauts a taste of nature. But even with all this, astronauts report changes in their personality. They return quieter, more introspective, sometimes detached. Space doesn't just test the mind, it shapes it. And when you come back, you carry that with you, not in your muscles, not in your bones, but deep in the wiring of who you are. It's not physical, it's not psychological, it's something else. It's what happens when they look out the window and see Earth. For the first time, they see the planet as a whole. A single blue marble, suspended in blackness. No borders, no nations, just home. And in that moment, something shifts. The overview effect. This transformation has a name, the overview effect. It's a profound cognitive and emotional shift that many astronauts experience when seeing Earth from orbit. They describe overwhelming feelings of unity, fragility, and interconnectedness. Some break into tears, others fall silent. Some are filled with joy, others with grief. Because from up there, all the conflicts, divisions, and noise of human life fade into the background. What remains is beauty and vulnerability. You realize how thin the atmosphere really is, a fragile shell protecting life from the vacuum of space. You realize how small our problems seem from a distance, and how precious every life is on every continent. Astronauts return with new values. Some change careers. Others become environmental advocates or peace activists. They no longer see Earth as a collection of countries. They see it as one ecosystem, one family, one chance, a spiritual awakening. Even astronauts who aren't religious often describe the experience as spiritual, not because they see God, but because they feel something sacred, something bigger than themselves. They speak of awe, of humility, of connection, floating in the silence of space, seeing all of humanity from a distance. Many feel that life is not just rare, it's miraculous. And that changes them. Forever. The return. But there's a cost. Because once you've seen Earth like that, it's hard to go back. It's hard to care about traffic, deadlines, emails, small talk. The contrast between the cosmic and the ordinary becomes jarring. Some astronauts report feelings of detachment, of being physically home, but mentally still in orbit. They've glimpsed something most people never will, and it leaves a mark, a scar of wonder, an imprint of perspective, a reminder that no matter how far we travel, the most extraordinary thing we've ever found is home. It wasn't science fiction. It was real, and it gave researchers a unique opportunity. Because for the first time, NASA had two astronauts who were genetically identical, Scott Kelly and Mark Kelly, twin brothers. Scott would spend nearly a full year aboard the International Space Station. Mark would remain on Earth. Same DNA, same age, different environments. The question, how would long-term spaceflight affect one twin compared to the other? A year in orbit. From 2015 to 2016, Scott Kelly orbited Earth more than 5,400 times. He lived in microgravity for 340 days. He experienced radiation, confinement, altered sleep, and weightlessness. Meanwhile, Mark Kelly lived a normal life on the ground. He became the perfect control subject, someone to compare against Scott in almost every measurable way. Throughout the mission, researchers took blood samples, cognitive tests, physiological scans, and genetic data from both brothers. What they found was surprising. What changed? Scott's immune system weakened in space. He experienced inflammation, shifts in gut bacteria, and a drop in bone density. His carotid artery thickened, a potential cardiovascular risk. His vision changed. His sleep suffered. His telomeres, the protective caps on DNA, lengthened unusually in orbit, then shortened rapidly once he returned. Perhaps most interesting, his gene expression, the way his body uses its DNA, shifted dramatically. Hundreds of genes turned on or off differently in space. Most of these changes reversed within months of returning to Earth, but some did not. About 7% of Scott's gene expression changes remained long-term. The experience had rewritten part of his biology, a glimpse into the future. The twin study didn't just reveal how space affects the body. It showed us the stakes of long-duration space travel, to the moon, to Mars, and beyond. It taught us that space doesn't just test endurance. It rewires life itself. And it proved, beyond theory, that no astronaut ever returns exactly the same. They speak in checklists. They execute missions with discipline. They represent the best of science, engineering, and human achievement. But there's a side of spaceflight many of them rarely talk about. Not in public, not in interviews, sometimes not even to each other. Because space doesn't just challenge the body or the mind. It leaves a mark, invisible but heavy. The psychological toll. When astronauts return, they're often celebrated. TV appearances, parades, books and documentaries. But in private, some of them struggle. Post-mission depression, anxiety, emotional detachment, even symptoms similar to PTSD. Not because something went wrong, but because the experience was so intense, so alien, that reintegration becomes difficult. You've floated above Earth. You've lived in silence. You've stared into blackness. Coming back to traffic, crowds, and the noise of everyday life can feel like culture shock. Some astronauts describe a feeling of disconnection from others, from themselves, from a world that hasn't changed, but that they no longer see the same way. The pressure to be fine. There's also a cultural pressure in space agencies to be resilient, to be the hero, to come back strong. Talking about emotional struggles can feel like weakness, even dangerous, especially if it affects future flight eligibility. So many keep quiet. They smile. They speak in mission summaries. They focus on the science, but the truth lingers underneath. Space is beautiful, but it's also isolating, disorienting, and, at times, emotionally overwhelming. And the psychological cost doesn't always show up immediately. It can emerge months, even years, after return. A quiet brotherhood. Among astronauts, there's an unspoken understanding. They may not always talk about what they feel, but they know that others feel it too. That space leaves something behind, a shift you carry quietly. Not a scar, not a wound, but a change, one that words rarely capture. But for astronauts, it's not always joyful, because when they get back to Earth, nothing feels right. Their bodies have changed. Their senses are confused. Their systems, rewired for space, suddenly don't work the way they used to. Even gravity feels violent. The weight of gravity. After months of floating, standing up feels like lifting a mountain. Muscles tremble, bones ache, hearts struggle to pump blood against gravity. Many astronauts can't walk off the capsule after landing. They're carried, rehydrated, monitored. It takes days, sometimes weeks, to regain balance, coordination, and basic strength. Some experience motion sickness just from standing. Others feel like they're being pulled downward by a force they forgot existed. Rebuilding the body. Rehabilitation begins almost immediately. Exercise, physical therapy, gradual exposure to full activity. The nervous system needs time to recalibrate. The immune system must catch up. The gut microbiome, altered by months in space, begins adjusting back to Earth's environment. Sleep is irregular. Appetite fluctuates. Even the sense of touch can feel dull or hypersensitive. The body was sculpted by space. Now it must be reshaped by Earth, reconnecting with life. But it's not just physical. Some astronauts say that conversations feel strange, that people talk too fast, that the noise of cities, the pace of life, the sheer randomness of Earth is overwhelming. Simple things can trigger deep emotion. The smell of grass, the sound of rain, the touch of a loved one. They've been looking down at the world for months. Now they're back inside it. But re-entry isn't just about landing. It's about remembering how to be here, to feel connected, to feel present, to feel normal. And for some, that takes much longer than expected. Because when you've been gone that long, home becomes a place you have to learn again. So yeah, they leave the planet with excitement, with purpose, with decades of training behind them. And when they return, they are not the same. Space flight is more than a journey. It's a transformation, physical, mental, emotional, and even spiritual. Muscles waste, bones weaken, vision blurs, the brain rewires. They float for months and must learn to walk again. They sleep under stars and return to the noise of Earth. They gaze at the whole planet and come back changed in ways no one fully understands. Some astronauts grow quiet. Some become outspoken. Some never fly again. Not because they can't, but because they've seen enough. Because what space gives you, it also takes. It shows you beauty, but it isolates you. It offers awe and demands resilience. It gives perspective, but leaves questions. Questions about life, about humanity, about what we're doing on this fragile blue. And though every astronaut returns to Earth, not all of them fully return to who they were. Because once you've floated above everything, once you've seen the world as one, alone in the dark, you carry that with you. Everywhere, forever. This is why astronauts never return the same. Not because they failed, but because they succeeded. They went farther than most of us ever will. And when they look back, they saw everything. If you found this story powerful, inspiring, or thought-provoking, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share it with someone who dreams of the stars. Because the more we understand space, the more we understand ourselves.